Grateful, full to the brim. I'm grateful more than I ever been. Yes, I'm grateful, full to the brim. I'm grateful more than I've ever been. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Grateful I woke up again. Woke up and took a breath again, Yahweh. Looked up and saw the sun again. I'm grateful for the eyes I have. Amen. I'm moving on my toes again. I'm grateful for the wind against my face. I'm grateful for the sensation. I love the song. Faith for the Journey podcast. I'm grateful for the episode number 14, I believe. Yeah. I'm grateful I can smile when I'm tasting it. No, it's 13. I took a week off. Pardon, guys. I'm grateful. I love this song. I stumbled upon it. I'll tell you about it in a little bit. I am grateful. I am. Yes, I'm grateful. More than I've ever been. It's true, yeah, it's true, yeah. I'm grateful. Full to the brim. What a simple yet powerful song. Yes, I'm grateful. Are you grateful? What are you grateful for? The topic, reflections, the little things matter. It's true, yeah. So welcome to Faith for the Journey, episode number 13. And I'm happy to be back with you. I'm feeling rested. And I don't know, I always say I don't know. That's not true. I do have some ideas, right? um, it's good to be back with you. And I don't know, I took a nap this afternoon. It's raining here. And it's been raining on and off all morning. But, I'm grateful to be back. I'm grateful for a lot of things and a lot of people. And this song is so meaningful. But before I get into the song, I want to give a big thank you to all of you who continue to listen to this podcast, who continue to share it, who continue to give back by doing that. Give back to others and give back to me. And it's how we grow. It's how we grow. It's how one of the ways that we continue to grow is by giving back to each other. So I want to thank you for that. But last weekend, yeah, I took time off, and as I grow, because I'm growing too, I recognize that, taking a break from the podcast is important. That's how I recover. That's how I get reprieve and replenished too. So, and when I was off, more creativity came in. When you take time to pause, and how appropriate, our topic tonight, reflections, and that's where this came from, that topic, because when I took time off from the podcast, from working, didn't do anything. I just took time to relax. The idea came about reflections and how important it is to literally slow down, so we can gather ourselves. And being able to slow down is a spiritual practice, actually. If you're a creationist, you believe in the Bible, you know that God formed the world 6 days, and the seventh day he rested. He took a break. Not like he needs a break, but he was showing us that we need a break. And if you look at nature, the seasons show us that. Summer doesn't run all the time, neither does winter or spring. Everybody takes a break sometimes, and there are necessary things that come out of pausing and taking a break. So this song is by Saint Finnegan, St. capital S, common letter T, period, Finnekin, Finnikin. I happened to stumble across, I like to always, first of all, it's not my music, so by law, I have to make sure that I do it. But even from my heart, it's not my music. I mean, I need to give credit to it. So Saint Finnegan, I happened to stumble across his music when I was posting one of my pictures from my Start campaign. If you follow my Facebook page or Instagram or TikTok, I've been doing Start campaign from the first week in January. Basically, Start campaign, the message is, get up and do something, whatever you do, work out, ride your bike, write, whatever you do, it's just a Start campaign to, encourage each of us to continue to do what's in our heart to do. So as I was posting the picture, this they give you suggestions for what song, goes with your content. AI is big these days, so this song came up, and I said, "Oh my goodness, this is so appropriate." And I have to admit, I played it last night before I went to bed. Was it last night or night before last night? And it brought tears to my eyes. It did. I was like, man, that song struck so many chords in my mind, in my heart. And I played it over and over again. And yesterday when I got up and I played it again, I went to the gym this morning, played it again. It really has a lot of meaning. So I hope you will look up this song by Saint Finnegan. It says, "I am grateful." And it's a simple song, but it's so powerful. So anyway, I want to share with you about, what that song, the title of the song, and of course who the artist is. So welcome again, welcome, cha-ching. Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't stop my little board here. I like the cash register sound because cha-ching, when we slow down, we actually save. We're cashing in on things that are very important to us. So that's why I use that. But before we get into this tonight, again, Keisha Henry here, and licensed clinical psychotherapist, social worker, wife, mom, nerd, all kinds of silly things. Love to work in the practice community, love to work out, love to spend time on the beach, love to knit. I mean, that's who I am. What can I say? And you can learn more about why this podcast exists. You can go to Podbean, podbean.com, and check it out. But really, this podcast is about helping each of us to continue to cultivate our faith. Or if you haven't started, then this podcast is really about that. In this work that I do, I find that so many times, all of us in our humanity, we are just stretched, beyond our limits, and we just feel like it's the end. It's not worth it from here. The brain can't see past the situation, and many people decide that they're going to end it, and they do. For some are very successful and some aren't, and people end up taking their lives. And this podcast has been placed on my heart last year, to do this year, and I'm going to continue to do this one because it's an important one, helping people, helping each and every one of us to be encouraged, to find a way to cultivate faith. And so you can finish your story. It's important that you finish your story. It's important that you continue to write your story every day. So, and now it's a good time to say, every time I do this podcast, you can skip if you want or just put it down. But hey, if you're hearing this podcast, there's a reason for it. And, if you feel like today is going to be the end for you, it doesn't have to be, This is a good time for you to really listen and know that there are people out there, that someone that can help you. There's so many signs in our day-to-day living that shows us that, somebody else bigger than us cares. Um, and if you're feeling hopeless or feeling like, you just have no way out, that's not true. That's a lie. That's a momentary thing. I want you to know that you can pick up the phone and dial 988 and dial 1. If you have your nearest emergency room, go there. Or if you don't want to do that, call a relative, and you don't have to tell them what your situation is, but you can call them just to talk, just to be distracted. Get up and go walk outside. Whatever it is you need to do, I want you to know that you have options outside of that one thought about ending your life. That is not the option. So I just want to take the time to always do that up front because it's important. And if I get the nudge, I do it in between the things that I'm talking about. But at the outset, I always like to do that. So we're going to pause. 6:10, always a good time for me to play another song. I'm excited about doing this podcast. I learn so much as I come along and as I, research or talk about different things that I'm seeing that's trending in the work that I do. And it's just helpful. It's just really helpful to be able to connect, connect with others, other persons connecting with me. This is how communities are strengthened. And I'm glad that you and I, we get to be a part of that. And so I'm going to play another song from the Faith for the Journey podcast playlist. I'm going to play Samuel Madas. It's called Stronger. I like this one a lot too.
Come to realize the changes in my life are for a reason. Every season, every man, why? Come to earth, confusion. You're making me stronger. These trials, no, they can't just be coincidence now. You're making me wiser. Full time, I open up my eyes and see that the pain is making me better. Work and process, bringing up my best, just taking me higher to unexpected. In the toughest of environments, you got me. In the midst of all this pestilence, you got me. Could there not have been an easier way? I pray. Could I see an easier day? I got this hurt from where my trust was betrayed. How much longer will my blessings delay? And you say run to your if you be late. I wonder if you ever heard when I prayed. You tell me the thoughts you have, I know that they are feeling. You tell me the things that look quite good when you are feeling. You say the next season of my life there'll be no limit. And the foot man in the fire ain't no giving. These things they are making me stronger. These trials know they cannot be coincidence now. You're making me wiser. Full time I open up my eyes and see that the pain is making me better. Urgent process, bringing up my days. You're taking me higher than unexpected. As unexpected. I could I never know what they inside of me. Unless you pass me through the sea. You're trying to give me a quick air and a slow down and a big heart and show me that your patience is the mistake. So I will give thanks to you and open my heart. Heights and depths, you promise peace and rest. You promise I'll be blessed. But right now in the season, you are making me stronger. That's why I know they cannot be coincidence. You're making me wiser. Good time I open up my eyes and see that the pain is making me better. Can't process, you're bringing out the best. You're taking me higher to unexpected. Oh, God. You are my daddy, you are my friend, you are my strength and you may depend. Didn't like Daniel in the den, but you're my beginning and you know my end. I'm a my father, I'm a my right, you make me right, you try my eye, tell me make great, tell me don't feel it, you feel my pain, and you got heal it. That one day I realize the pain don't hurt like it used to. My life is full of blessing and it's because I choose to. You know the everlasting, I'm the enemy, me never lose you. Holding on and me never lose you, but Jesus, you are making me strong. Making me wiser. Open up my eyes, open up my eyes. You're making me better. What you have for me, I'm not quite ready, but you're taking me higher. Oh, Jesus, you are making me stronger. This trial, no, they cannot be coincidence now. You're making me wiser. To pretty enemy, spot my destiny, you're making me better. Cause who I must be working and surviving each season is taking me higher. There's an expected end for me. Oh, I've come to realize the changes in my life are orchestrated by you. They're orchestrated by you. Yahweh.
I love Samuel Medas. Oh my gosh! So as I was playing the music, there's so many. When I come on the podcast, there's so many directions that I want to go in. And before I get on here, before I even do any sessions, there are times when I say this, and there are times when I don't, depending on what I'm sensing. But so I'm sensing now that I can say it, and I do pray before I come on this podcast. I don't take this for granted. Like when I do therapy sessions or groups or whatever teaching. I mean, where do our gifts come from? I mean, they don't come from us. They're within us. We get them from somewhere. So, I really try to respect the source of the gifts. And I go back to the source and I say, Lord, you know what? I really need for you to help me to do it the way that you prefer, so with that, I want to start out with this poem rather, a little bit of poetry. It says, O King of joys eternal, today I praise you for small wonders. In them I see your delight. For birds that shrill, I like that word, and warble their worship. For the verdant witness of wind-blown leaves, and of starlight sparkling, and of sunlit streams, and of blooming flowers. Can you see any of that? How about you get a visual on that? Let me just start with the second stanza again. For birds that trill and warble their worship, for the verdant witness of wind-blown leaves, and of starlit sparkling, and of sunlit streams, and of blooming flowers. I praise you, O King. Your joy is everywhere manifest, even in the smallest things. I praise you, O King, for soft beds and blankets, for stories and songs, for kisses and kindnesses. Your tenderness is displayed in all things nurturing. Your mercy in manifests in the details of this world, O Lord. Your grace is worked into every corner of creation. For all small wonders, I give you thanks and I give you praise, O God. Amen. This is from the liturgy of Thursday's table blessings rather. This came out of my devotion, and so the topic tonight is called reflections. The little things matter, and the little narrative I wrote up was basically saying oftentimes slowing down in our time, and in times past too. I mean, we're on a pendulum where we're seeing a repeat of history in many ways, right? So slowing down, oftentimes is not viewed as productive or important. In fact, it's viewed as unimportant. It's if you're not hustling and going, it's almost like you're wasting time, and you find yourself then we call this normalizing. If you work with me, I talk about normalizing, normalizing versus moralizing. And a lot of times, a lot of things that we do, we don't even reflect on why we're doing them. We just do it because we see other people doing it, or we feel pressured to do it, And oftentimes, what we really desire gets lost in all that. The true things in our hearts get lost. And so one of the things I wrote, or some of the other things I wrote, really, I said, so what would happen if we slow down and reflect, taking stock and gather ourselves? What life shifts would happen, right? Now we talk about faith for the journey, right? If you're going to cultivate, your faith, so faith is that thing that you can't touch. It's that intangible thing. It's that thing on the inside, that again, it's a gift. Faith is a gift that was given to each and every one of us. The ability to believe for something that you can't see, that you can't touch. And so we're going to cultivate faith. One of the spiritual, I would say, activity, right? And what a paradox, right? To talk about slow down and use word activity. But one of the activities to do to strengthen your faith is to be able to slow down, to reflect. At the outset from the podcast, I mentioned about if you're a creationist, right? That hey, creation was formed 6 days and seventh day. The scripture says God rested. Now, if you're evolutionists, you look at nature and you talk about the universe. Some persons that's the languaging, right? But look at seasons. Seasons also speak to the fact that slowing down. There are changes. There's a slow. There's a change. There's a pacing that takes place. Why? Because other things need to happen. Well, so we're going to take a look at that tonight. So, being reflective is a spiritual practice. It's a hey, people from the East, right? Do meditation. That's a time of reflection. To mindfulness practices such as meditation, breath work, right? These are all activities that are included in, developing one's spirituality and faith, strengthening one's faith. So these are expressions of our spirituality, and they strengthen the faith. They strengthen this inside of us that helps us to deal with things, right? So the opposite of not doing that, well, you're not connecting to yourself. So how is it then you're connecting to your spiritual essence if you're always going? Think about it, right? So what I'm doing is exposing, certain norms, but look at how these certain norms, they really go against our spiritual person. They go against the essence of who we are. It's no wonder then, then we get, there's a saying, you get caught up in a rat race. It's no wonder then that the mind is always racing. And that goes for me first, right? You work with me, I say it all the time. Hey, what I'm saying to you applies to me first. I'm not pointing fingers, right? I'm just here to help, right? But it's no wonder then that the mind, is always racing. We always feel like we're not completing anything. And we always feel like, man, I'm not hitting the mark. Once again, normalizing, right? And sometimes we are hitting the mark, but we're just not slowing down long enough to realizing, right? And then we're hitting the mark, but what mark? So I also wrote about, well, what is it that we're productive about? What is it? Man, I think it's time for me also, all of us, to slow down and take stock of really what's really important. And the thing about that is, I mean, what's important changes, right? It's, because things become, hey, this is important today, but then next year it's not. But in this moment, what is it that is important to you? So reflections, the little things matter. So here's a word that I want to introduce to you. It's called automaticity, right? Automaticity, it simply says that, the brain gets used to doing a particular thing and it's just on automatic, like you're automated, right? So think about if you're always going, 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 going. So the mind is always racing, racing, racing. So that's automaticity, right? So you're always going, you're always racing, you're always just so busy. That's what the brain gets used to doing. In fact, the brain doesn't even know how to slow down anymore. And then when you put into that, of course, the T word, trauma, right? You put in there trauma, you add to that, and then we put in there other chemical imbalances. Some people have ADHD, but I'm gonna tell you, ADHD is masked a lot of times, because trauma gets in there. So when you add all of those things to the mix, man, you feel like you're just all over the place. You're not really sure. You're not even sure about your emotions and what they are. You have no time to reflect on like your thoughts because they're jumbled, they're everywhere, right? This going, 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 going. So you can see then in the midst of all of this, I've mentioned a lot of things. I've mentioned, physical activity, the mental activity, the mental racing of the mind. And what's driving a lot of this? Well, what's driving this is external and internal stuff, right? We're talking about a lot of things that are happening all at the same time and not being able to find a way to settle down, to reflect, to see, hey, what is working? What is actually important to me right now? You know what? Sometimes what I see is that a lot of people are given the agenda of others. Yeah, you're doing for everyone else, or I have to do this. There's a lot of people take on a lot of roles, and roles come responsibilities, and then people actually are in these locked into these kinds of roles and responsibilities, and then they don't find the time to slow down. They just keep going, 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 and then they have their regular work lives, and I mean, it just snowballs, and before you know it, people are angry, people are depressed, people are anxious, people feel like they have no way out, and hey, let me just go ahead and add that if you're in a work environment where you have no support, you feel unsupported, you may have an aging parent, you may feel like I have to pay the bills. I mean, I'm just throwing stuff in there, the stuff that I see every day, and you just feel like, oh my God, I just can't do this. The kids don't love you. No matter what you do, it's not enough. It's And then, and then you have people pulling on you and guilting you. I mean, and then, so there you go. So there's no time to slow down, it sounds like, right? So where is that space to develop any kind of faith? In fact, based on those scenarios, I mean, faith is probably, the light's almost snuffed out. There is no time to develop, spiritual expression, or even define what that is for you. I mean, so automaticity is like that. So I just gave you a fancy word and I just defined it in everyday living. That's what automaticity is, right? So just going, 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 going. And here's the other side to automaticity. The other side to automaticity is that you're able to just be on default automation, like, and while you're doing that one particular thing, then your mind's also doing something else. So automaticity says, hey, like, it's almost like I'm doing a podcast right now, but I'm also on Facebook scrolling, or I'm planning my next podcast. That's what automaticity, like, you're never just present with what you're doing. You're always doing something now. Like, you're driving down the road and you're also planning what dinner is tonight, right? You're driving down the road and you're thinking about, oh, what's going to happen after work when I come home. That's automaticity. Or you're driving down the road and, you got to work and don't even know how you got to work, right? That's automaticity. So automaticity, right, does not allow any person really to figure out, what is it that, what, it doesn't give you any autonomy. I'm just going to just lay it out there. It just doesn't give you a chance to just find out what it is that's important to you. It doesn't give you a chance to rest. Oh, by the way, you know what this country says about sleep hygiene? It's like almost out the window. When your brain does not get a chance to rest, and for women, if you're over 40 like me, that increases your risk of strokes. Okay. So automaticity, right? Automaticity is very unhealthy. Talk about not being able to develop spirituality and faith is also going to really affect you biophysically, right? You can really have some serious illnesses, right? So automaticity, is not something that we should be proud of. Again, I mentioned earlier about normalizing versus moralizing. So I don't want to spend too much time on that on this podcast. Maybe I'll do it in the next one. But normalizing says, hey, if you don't do this, you're wrong. You're stupid for not doing that. You know what I mean? And moralizing is more about, hey, you know what? Morals and values, what's important to me, right? That's the side that we need to kind of land our hat on, is the moralizing part. Moralizing, so we talk about morals. Attached to morals, a two-prong, right? Is what are values? What are values that are important to me? And we have to be careful there because this is where a lot of times a lot of judgment creeps in for people, and where people get anxious and depressed too, because our super ego kicks in. Because what our values, a lot of our values was given to us by our parents. And not to say we chuck all of that, because I don't believe in that. I don't believe in this cancel culture. I don't. It's just, that's dangerous too. And I dare to say cancel culture is automaticity too, because that's normalizing. That's telling you what to do. And when they tell you what to do, then they basically teach you how to measure your success by what they say. And by the way, backdoor, that's also assigning value that you did not select for yourself. Now I'm getting real deep here, but it's true. So we need to stick more on the side of moralizing, because moralizing allows us to kind of look at, hey, morally, what's important to me? What are my values? What am I assigning value to? So the question tonight is, if you want reflections, right? Reflect on, hey, you know what? Let me just stop and think. The values I have. I value family, I value love, I value money. If you value money, you're probably going to be working 80, 90, 100 hours a week. And you're not going to have time for yourself or for your kids, or really the other values that are really. So really, we can have competing values too and not even be aware of it. When we have competing values, then we're definitely not going to slow down. So we don't have to compete, but we can prioritize, right? We can prioritize. So what am I saying? I'm saying do away with automaticity. We shouldn't really be doing that, right? So to break that up, I'm going to pause. I want you to reflect on this as I pause. Reflect on the word automaticity. And, like I said, I gave definition around, or I gave examples, day-to-day examples around, automaticity and what it could look like, or maybe what it does look like for you. Then I also talked about, normalizing versus moralizing, and how, normalizing what the world and the culture and, and different institutions, how they, basically set measures for us that cause most, if not all of us in the world and this country, to feel like we can't slow down. When we don't slow down, it has serious, consequences and impacts. It really impacts our cognition, it impacts our mood, right? And it impacts our behavior. And I look at cognition, mood, and behavior all day. Yes, I look at that all the time. That's what I'm trained to do. And a lot of times when I peel the layer back, it's normalizing versus moralizing. These are things that shape, you know, my clients' decisions. And I'm like, hey, let's take a look at this. And when I help them to see it, gee, I didn't know it was wrapped up in that blanket. That's what it is. You know what I mean? Hey, that goes for me too. So consider these parts as I pause. And what else I want you to consider? Lastly, so now, which side do I think you need to land on? Now, this is by research too, right? Everything I do is grounded in research, right? So think about moralizing more than normalizing. So if you keep going with normalizing, you're gonna keep going with what the world says to do, and measuring your success and your values and your desires by what they say. But I want you to consider moralizing. So what are your values, right? What are they now? And do you want to keep them? Do you want to maybe reassign some values? Maybe you want to eliminate some, because again, a lot of stuff that we have on the inside was given to us from different places and people, and I don't know that we want to keep all of those things. So I want you to consider. When we get back, I'm going to read to you. um, I'm going to read to you. No, I'm going to play a video with teaching about, how to reflect. All right, how to reflect. I'm going to pick up on the values piece, and then look at different parts of, reflection, different parts of reflection, and how you can incorporate that in your day to day living. We're going to play another song from the Faith for the Journey podcast. Gosh, I always have a hard time picking something. It's like I always I want to play everything and I can't. Okay. I think I'm going to play this one. I'm going to play Trust in God. Elevation worship. I love elevation worship. Never fails. Oh my God. Sometimes in my life, I'm like, yeah, he fails me. No, he's sovereign. And then a couple months or years will pass by, and I'll look back and I'm like, yeah, he never failed. Here's a question for you. So, the last thing I left, because I seeded this idea, because I really wanted to grow. I talked about values. What values, what are you assigning value to? Because, hey, if you look at this is why reflection is so important, right? Because if you reflect on what you do from the moment you get up till your time you go to bed, you're going to see the values or value that you have assigned. You're going to see um, what's important to you. And the truth about that is, maybe you didn't even assign yourself, but it was given. It was chucked at you. And I'll admit, some of the values that we work from, um, we're just not aware about it. It's an unconscious thing. It's the automaticity thing that I was talking to you about earlier. So, in this podcast, I'm challenging myself first, seriously. Starting tonight, pay attention to what you're doing. Are you spending time scrolling on your phone? Are you spending time in your head? I have a lot of clients saying, I'm in my head a lot. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, that's a start because you're aware. That's the key to change is awareness. Well, let's take a look at what's going on. What do you spend your time doing? A lot of times we spend our time, we call it a fixation, right? Rumination. We ruminate about a lot of things. And, and the things that when we put them down on paper, a lot of it comes from normalizing what was given to us and the things that we're paying attention to. And then by default, we're assigning value. And then we're calling them truths when they're not, they're lies. And this is why I love the work that I do so much, because let me just tell you too, like when I work, it's also very healing for me too. It really is. And I love it. I just do. Um, so, so I'm assigning value to what's important to me when I do this podcast, right? It's a reciprocity. It really is. So, what are we calling truths, right? What are we assigning value to? So, here's a question that I want you to consider. I'm going to drop it now and then I'll drop it again at the end. But just in case, sometimes I forget, I'm going to drop it now. It says, consider truths that you have relied on in the past when tossed by storms, like when difficulties come. Hey, let me finish this question. What truths have remained crucial to you as you journey through life? Truths without which you would not be where you are today. So, you know how sometimes in prior podcasts I talk about the exception. The exceptions are things that happen to us and we don't even we forget that they happened, but they were actually good. But everything else that was normalized in our life, we forget about that. Those negative dominant themes, we forget about the exceptions. Let me read that question again. Consider truths you've relied on in the past when tossed by storms, like these existential things that I talk about from time to time, or every podcast really. What truths have remained crucial to you as you journey through life? Truths without which you would not be where you are today. So you see, the exception is spiritual because you couldn't have done it on your own. Something that happened, right? The exception. Now, here's a good time. I was talking to a client today and she gave me permission to share. She's probably listening right now. And if you are, you're awesome. You know who I'm talking about in the NBHI community. And I've been working with this person for a little over a year. We're doing maintenance sessions now. She's amazing. And I believe one day I will see her on she's going to be a cover model one day. I'm convinced. Um, She said, what's been impressing me a lot, what's been pressing on my heart a lot lately? Well, two things she said. She said, I missed the podcast last week. I knew you took a break, but I missed listening. I was like, wow. So she's one of the persons in the community that I often hear back from and get feedback from about this podcast. And I really appreciate that. It lets me know that people are listening and they're helping others, cultivate their walk. I'm grateful. She says to me, the one thing that I've been thinking about a lot in the past week since I last saw you is how to cultivate my faith. I literally almost fell out of my chair today. I said, what? She smiled. She said, yeah, I'm missing that. And I've had some experiences in my life that I knew it was God that did that. It just happened out of nowhere. I looked across, to her because it was a telehealth. I'm like, did you just say that? She says, yeah, yeah, I'm serious. And I said, look at that. So now she's reassigning value. She's realizing that this part of her life needs to be strengthened. She's recognizing that that part of her life is important to her success. So she's reprioritized. She's slowing down. And this is the thing that I do in this work is help my clients slow down so they can cultivate the spiritual part of their essence and their existence. Because if you don't, your ego qualities, when I talk about ego qualities, your daily functioning and your motivation, your will, your psychological power, that's what I'm talking about. If you don't get that under control, you're gonna be flim flam all over the place. You're gonna be like on automaticity forever. You're gonna be beat down. Listen, the world beat us down every day as it is, but it's gonna be double, triple. So she said that to me, and I said, huh? And we weren't even anywhere near that topic in the conversation, our session. She said that. And I said, you know what? Do I have permission to share it tonight? She says, yep, you sure can. So I'm just sharing with you, what other people are doing in their lives, that they are checking out, their spiritual essence and the importance of it to their what? Their ability to function every day, their ability to meet existential things that come at them. So did you hear the question? So now I'm going to pause. I'm going to play this video. I found this video and I vetted the video. I like it a lot. It aligns with science and it's not boring. It's really relatable. Let me just say that. But I want you to listen. It's going to really kind of, I would say, cement and summarize what I've been talking about already in the podcast. And as we wind down, I think it's appropriate to play it. So I'm going to do that now. Let's see how good I am with this stuff. Trying to navigate this and that. Huh? Okay.
Is the idea of self-reflection, the serious contemplation of yourself as an overall person, and more specifically, your character, actions, and motives on a day-to-day basis. Now, this is something I wanted to dive into because it's something I spent a lot of time doing this past year. And I think by doing so, it's helped me with a number of things in life, including growing as a person and sort of, making sense of things in the world. To help simplify and better describe this, I've broken this down into three main points. We'll call it the three O's: openness, observation, and objectivity. Let's break it down. Openness is being able to see things for the way that they are and not for what we think they should be. It means becoming more aware of our own biases and stereotypes that we have about the world, other people, or even ourselves, and working to overcome them. It's sort of the idea of not being so closed off. It's more of, having that open learning mindset.
Let me just say, when we're normalized, you can't be open. When we have measures that are given to us about what our lives should look like and what we should do, and there's a script for everything, that's not being open. And that's definitely not being objective either, right? When you objectify things, so you talked about the three O's: being open, openness and objectivity, right? And observation. And I like to just, before I even finish the rest of this clip, if you work with me, I talk about, hey, objectivity, when you objectify something, you throw putty to the wall. That means you come out of your head, you yank it out, and you throw it to the wall. That thing right there is red. Now, red. Now, when you see red, what meaning does red have for you? In your experiences, what does red symbolize? What meaning do you ascribe to red? And I ask these questions just like that. Now, see, from there is language, right? Is meaning, is power, and it shapes what we do. It shapes if it helps us or harm us, right? So let me just finish this.
Kind of, how I mentioned in my previous video. And I think that allows us to see things for the way that they are and not for what we think they should be, or what we want them to be exactly. Observation is the ability to watch yourself like you would watch any event or show from a distance. So think of your life as this video, and you're sitting on the other side of the screen, and you're watching it and thinking about what is being done right and what needs to be improved. So basically, you're looking at your life from an overhead bird's eye view, and you're picking out different things that you like or things that you need to improve on. And it kind of, helps make sense of you as a person, and, kind of removes you from the, everyday busyness of life in general, and, kind of helps you reflect on your well-being and, who you are truly as a person. Objectivity is the ability to separate your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors from your identity and sense of self. It's the real exploration into who you truly are as a person. And of course, the behaviors you engage in are part of who you are, but they don't encompass all of who you are. There's so much more to the puzzle, and I think that's what really allows us to gain a better understanding of ourselves and, for who we truly are as individuals. So those are my three main points when discussing self-reflection. And I think it's super important that we practice these on a regular basis because it helps bring a sense of calming and peacefulness into your life. And I think it also helps manage stress. And for those of you who know me well, I don't deal with really any stress in my life. And we'll save that for another video, but I think this has played a huge role into why that is. And I think, if more people start to practice this and kind of take a step back from the daily pressures, you might see some of these effects, helping you out in your regular, day-to-day life.
I love it. if you step back from the pressures. And what he's talking about, because he's not a social scientist, but he's talking about the normalizing. Yes, the pigeonhole. Yes, those things that I talked about earlier. But yeah, I like how he summarized, the openness, the objectivity, and the observation. And I would just boil it down to, hey, normalizing. Look at what you're assigning values to. Look at your boundaries, your roles and responsibilities. Hey, take a step back every day, morning till night. I challenge you before you go to bed tonight. Start noticing what you're spending your time doing. That goes for me first. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? The little things matter. The little things matter. So what are the little things in your life that are really important to you, but you don't even do them, or if you're doing it, you're so on automaticity that you're not even enjoying them? Now, I have to make a confession. For me, that's been my knitting. I have not been enjoying my knitting as much, and I asked myself the question, well, what's going on? I used to really, if you all know anything about me, I can open a yarn store, okay? I have so much yarn. But I've been really, and I had to really reflect. I had to do the observation, be open about it, observe, and take a look. And honestly, I'm in a different season in my life. We talked about seasons earlier, right? I'm in a different season of my life, and transitioning, moving, there are different things that I need to get done. And in this season, I still do knitting, but it's not as much as I would like to. So because I'm in that season, I say to myself, when I do knit, I really do need to be present and have fun with it. I don't. And here's another thing too. When when he talks about objectivity, you have to be objective, meaning that instead of thinking about what it is you wanting it to be, right? Look at it for what it is. What it is can help you to make it what you want to be if that possibility exists. But if you're not looking at something for what it is, then then you can't pivot, and then that creates more stress. Man, we talked about a lot of stuff tonight. I had a great time. And I want to close with the scripture. I didn't get to read that part. So I read to you the poetry, but I did not read to you the scripture that supports that. It's Psalms 104:14 to 15, the small things that matter. And again, I love nature. So I've been making a real point to, when I'm outside, to listen to the drill of the birds. I love that word. The trill, rather, not the drill. The trill, and how they warble their worship. I like the trill and warble. Those words, they don't go together, but really, it goes with the activity of the birds. And I've been listening to the trill of the birds, and it was raining earlier. I love to hear the rainfall, and I've been really making a point. I don't know for you, but sometimes do you kind of like make up in your mind how something is supposed to be, and then when you get to it, it's not that? That's called adaptation. I often talk about that. I have to constantly work on, allowing things to be how they are, and this is some of what we need to do with a lot of things. So like when I go outside, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to sit out in the rain. I'm going to feel a certain way. Well, like, why am I premeditating what I'm going to feel like? Why don't I just sit outside and just see what it feels like? A lot of times too, we get caught up in that. We premeditate. We call those, in our world, we call those thinking errors, right? Why am I foretelling? That's a thinking error. Do you do that? Do you foretell how something's going to be before you even get there? And then when you get there, not only does adaptation kick in, but this thinking error just messed up the whole experience, right? The little things matter. Let's slow down and be in the present. What am I doing? I'm helping us to recognize, right? Some of our cognitions, right? The thoughts that really impacts our mood, that really impacts our behaviors, that really impacts the quality of our lives, that impacts our faith, right? Man, we have to make time to cultivate faith. We have to. It's just real. It doesn't just happen on its own. And I'm telling you, there's something that requires work every day, you know? You want something good? My grandmother always say, you want good, your nose off your run. And as I got older, I'm like, what does that mean? But I understand. It takes time. It's hard work. But then the perspective is not the fact that it's hard work. The fact that is that it's an investment in yourself, and life is work. And we get to do something about that. So, reflections, the little things matter. Thank you so much for joining me for episode 13, Faith of the Journey. And almost time to rock out of here. A couple of announcements, though. Um, so, Stephanie and I, we've moved to completely online. And for now, until we can finalize the nonprofit, it's been an uphill battle. I'll share that with you. But we're moving through. I want to thank Richard Bolko, CPA, and an accountant who's working on that for us. Thank him so much for helping me, helping us at NBHI. Just going to give you an update about that. And thank you for those who completed the survey in last month's newsletter. So now we're in May. So this month I'll be putting out a new newsletter to update everyone that we're going to be doing an online maintenance group. When I say maintenance, we have a self-esteem improvement group that we've done in person for like the past 5 years. And now we're moving to more of a maintenance, persons who want to maintain their therapeutic gains, who want to continue to strengthen their sense of self and their relationships and their daily functioning. So we're going to be putting out the link for that sometime in May, so you can begin to enroll for that. The charge will be $50 per group. You will get education materials to work with in this group. I mean, that's how we operate anyway. Everything is about education, because without education, there's no integration. And then you would have been wasting your time if you don't have education and practice. Okay. We believe in practice. It's a big deal. So we can have synaptic pruning. Okay. So you can change those ways that don't work. All right. So that's what that means. So I'm going to be putting that information out sometime here in May, so you can enroll, because that begins in the fall. Also, Stephanie is going to be doing a monthly walk group with the women in West Palm Beach, since I'm not in that area all the time. I'm going to be joining Stephanie. I think it's going to be the fourth Saturday of every month. I think we're going to nail that down. And I think she wants to start that actually in June. So that's just the updates I have. What else? I think that's it for now. We're pretty excited about the transition that we're doing. It was a little bit scary, but again, God is good. He is. And I'm very thankful and encouraged. Again, big shout out to Stephanie Semino and Miss Amanda Costa. She's our backbone. Oh my gosh. I love them. Oh, yes. Honestly, thank you. And last but not least, very exciting to share with you that new and upcoming author, Megan Harris. I want to mention her on this podcast. I will be interviewing Megan Harris on the third week of this month. I think it's May 18th, with her new book. I'll be sending out her headshot and her bio shortly here within another few days to, alert and to inform the podcast community, NBHI community, about this upcoming interview with Megan Harris. I'm excited. I spoke with her today. Her publicists, her senior and our lead publicist reached out to me. They love Healing of the Heart, Faith for the Journey, and they wanted to collaborate. And so I've been talking to Megan, vetting her, making sure that she's a good fit for us in the work that we do. So I'm excited to bring her on to the show. What else? I'm going to be doing a mother-daughter segment in May. May is Mother's Day month, and so I'm excited to do that as well with my daughter, Keisha Henry. I got her permission to share that, so we'll be doing that. I think the third week. No, not the third week. Maybe next week. Actually, I have to look at my calendar. She's cool with that, because the fourth week I take off. Right? We take breaks. So with that, thank you so much. Chi-ching. You know what that means? It's time to cash in on being what? And pausing and slowing down. And I want to give you a round of applause for just being such a great audience and being with me, being with us. Right? So we cashed in on some good elements and nuggets tonight. We're going to pause, we're going to reflect, and we're going to definitely celebrate our success. With that, I'm going to play. I don't know. I always get so conflicted about what to play. Giving God the glory tonight. Giving God the glory tonight for this podcast, and how He just did things tonight. I'm always amazed at what He does. I like this song, "Wait on God." Wait on God, meaning that you work with Him, and you continue to develop your faith, and and the activities that will continue to develop and strengthen your faith. And that's how we wait on Him. We don't wait by sitting and doing nothing, and we definitely don't wait by just doing automaticity. Okay? It doesn't work like that. So here we go. Here's a song, Wait on God.
For everything, there's a season, for a reason, for a lifetime. There's a time to learn, a time to cry, a time to build, and a time to break down. For the stars, 'twas me and you, our peace and never revealing, and expected in a new beginnings. Only God can renew our strength. I will wait, Lord, I'm gonna wait on you. I will wait, Lord, I'm gonna wait on you. I will wait, Lord, I'm gonna wait on you. Cause of the Father, who sent the Son, and the prophet of 3 1.
As I'm closing, I didn't get to read Psalms 104, 14, 15. I'm going to read it now with this music. He causes grass to grow for the livestock and provides crops for man to cultivate, producing food from the earth, wine that makes human hearts glad, making his face shine with oil and bread that sustains human hearts. Psalms 104, 14 to 15. Reflections. The little things matter. Thank you guys. Have a great evening. Bye bye.